Hi, and welcome everyone to the webinar today titled Human First Teaching with AI. My name is Dr. Anwar Hijaz. I'm a political scientist faculty member at Saddleback College and a faculty mentor at CVC at One. I'm so pleased and excited to introduce our amazing facilitator today for today's webinar, Nydia Gonzalez. Nydia is a dedicated community college educator with nearly a decade of experience in higher education. She has helped launch a STEM speaker series at Chabot College, served as assessment coordinator at Los Angeles Medianos
Los
College.
Medanos, sorry, Los
Los
Medanos.
Medanos, thank you.
No worries.
And developed a wide range of open source resources to support students taking her courses. At Los Medanos College, Nydia is known for her innovative, student-centered approach to course design and teaching. She's currently assistant professor of mathematics at Norco College, and she's a passionate advocate for professional development and collaborative learning. She frequently trains faculty and presents on technology integration and course assessment strategies. A community college graduate herself, Nydia is deeply committed to equity and inclusion in education, working to ensure that all students have access to engage high quality instruction, both in and beyond the classroom. So I wanted to make a few announcements before we fully begin the webinar. So during the webinar, we will be sharing a survey link for your feedback. The survey will be posted close to the end of the webinar. Please do fill it out. It is a short survey and your input is much appreciated to allow CVC at One to help create programming that meets your needs. And then lastly, at One provides badges for course completion, but we do not offer badges for attending this webinar. However, if your institution requires proof of attendance for flex credit or professional development, please stay until the end, complete the survey, and request a copy of your responses via the Google form. This confirmation can serve as proof for your attendance. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it to you, Nydia. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, welcome. I honestly hope you take something from today that you can put into practice to streamline your workload and spend that reclaimed time, with your students. Okay, and so, here we go. Learning outcomes. I like to write these as I can statements. It's something I picked up during the pandemic when I was homeschooling my own daughter and looking at K through 12 materials. And I love that because by the end of this presentation, you should be able to say the following. I can explain how letting AI do the heavy lifting for me leaves me time to interact with my students. I can demonstrate how to use Canvas's rich text editor, HTML and CSS to create custom accessible course content. I can use AI to troubleshoot Canvas HTML code errors. I love using AI for this. Man, it saves me so much time for this. I can use AI to create custom test banks for online teaching, and I can describe modeling responsible AI behavior with my students. The first thing I want to touch on, though, is the human part. Before I get into the technical side, really, what is, oh, sorry, I have to hide the chat on my screen because it's blocking my screen. There it is. What is human first teaching? So the idea is in this modern day and age, some people feel that maybe teachers aren't relevant in education, that you can just plop someone in front of a computer with AI and have them teach it. But frankly, that loses out on the sincere human to human connections. And that's what keeps us relevant because that's what's integral to student learning. Now, why do I say that these connections are integral to learning? Because relationships supersede rigor. And this coming from a mathematician, students are more receptive to learning when they feel safe in a classroom, that they can make mistakes and not look bad, when they feel safe that they won't, be called out or in any way made to feel bad for these mistakes. They'll trust your space. And that trust is integral to good pedagogy. Connection fuels cognition. Students who feel seen by their professors, who don't feel invisible, who feel safe coming in, who trust, switch over from survival mode, like can I make it through this class, to learning mode, where they are more willing to ask you questions, engage, and even show you their mistakes, and even share mistakes to the classroom. I love that my students feel safe enough that they're willing to share wrong answers with me, even though I will say, that's not correct, but thanks for sharing. Let's talk about how this fits into the content and how to fix the mistake. So I do feel that my students do feel safe and trust my classroom environment. And then, of course, professional friendships sustain motivation. I don't know your workplace experiences, but we've all had workplaces where we get along with our colleagues, where we don't. And frankly, any place where I get along and I feel a connection with my colleagues, I'm more motivated to be there. An environment of mutual respect and camaraderie builds the connections that keep people motivated to keep doing the good work they do. And your students will work harder for you. We'll work harder for professors who maintain these professional friendships. I don't mean like take them out to lunch and have a social life with them on the weekends. When I say professional friendships, keep it like you do with your colleagues. If you see them on campus, don't just ignore them and say, I'm too busy and, in my ivory tower doing ivory tower things. Like talk to them, ask them about their day, see where they're going, what they're up to, what clubs do they participate in, and you'll really get to know your students that way. And now let me show you the plan, by the way, because really all of this takes time. You can't do any of this if you don't have the time and support to get tasks, because really modern day teaching, especially online, requires so much more work of us, so much more of our time. And I use artificial intelligence, namely ChatGPT, to streamline all of my, busy work tasks, and that leaves me time with my students. So these are the three main things I want to talk about. And I kind of want to share something a little more personal as to the ethos of why I teach the way I teach. And I don't need this to be on a slide, really, I don't. So this is not on a slide. And I'll say, I don't need a research paper to tell me what human first teaching is. And I don't think you do either, because hopefully you're not like this, but unfortunately some of us are. Some of us do know what it's like to be treated inhumanely. And I have endured abuse at home in K through 12 settings by people who should have kept me safe, and in an intimate partner setting. So I know what it's like to feel invisible, and in those settings, reach out for help and be ignored and not get the help I needed. And this is where I want to share a story of how that informs my teaching and my interaction with my students. Early in my adjunct career, a female student disclosed physical abuse at home by her father, and I didn't know what to do at the time. It was a stats course. I don't remember if it was a Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. All I knew is I have to make sure she comes back to class on the next meeting, because I can't help her if she doesn't come back to class. So, she had mentioned she struggled studying because she has to do it outside her room, and that's when where the abuse happens. So I told her, you know what, don't do the homework. Don't stress about this class until next time. Don't study for my class. Hang out in your room, watch TV, take care of yourself, do whatever you need to do to not be in that shared space. And I asked her, if I find someone for you to talk to, would you talk to them? She said, yeah. So that bought me the time I needed to look up the crisis counselor on our campus, find the physical location, and message them. I didn't disclose personal stuff. I just said, I have a student in a crisis. Can I bring them over to you at X time on X date? And guess what? She showed up to the class next time. And I was so happy she did, because after class, I was able to chat her up, just about normal things. How's your day? Hey, do you still want to talk to someone? And while walking to the crisis center, I didn't want her to panic and change her mind. So, shared things about her commute. Like, how was the drive? What do you listen to in the car? What kind of music? Anything to just keep it calm and chill and get her to the crisis center. And when I got there was someone who knew she was coming, ready to talk to her, and I was able to pass her on to hopefully, and I don't know the result of this because obviously it's private. They're not going to share it with me, but I honestly, truly hope that she got the help she needed and she isn't in that situation. And this informs my ethos as to why I use AI the way I do it, because I've gone through these mental health crises. At UC Berkeley, I remember plopping down in a counselor's chair and breaking down into tears. I was so overwhelmed as an undergraduate, and it wasn't even the content. I was in survival mode. I was still in that toxic, intimate partner relationship. And when your brain is in that survival mode, information goes in one ear and out the other. You don't learn well in those situations, frankly. And that counselor looked at me like deer in headlights, said, you need more tutoring help. Here's a flyer for our tutoring center. And I'm thinking, I have never felt more invisible in my life. I didn't know what to do at that point. I didn't get the help I needed at the time. So go figure, I came in on a full academic scholarship, but left with a under 3.0 GPA, because during that time was one of my most difficult mental health crises of my life. And I got there without help, and I decided my students are not going to get that on my watch. They're going to get the help they need, even if I can't give it to them. And frankly, if you're in here going, oh my God, it's making me so uncomfortable. Why is this woman sharing her baggage? Good. I hope I'm making you uncomfortable, because if you cannot sit with the discomfort here in a safe setting where no one is asking you for your help, what are you going to do when a student comes into your office in crisis? Because you need to figure out a plan for that. So now what I'm going to show you is how I outsource a lot of my work and streamline it. And it isn't just efficiency for efficiency's sake. It's so I have bandwidth for two things, right? to take care of myself, because really I can't take care of my students if I don't take care of myself. It's like the flight attendants tell you, put your mask on before you help a child. You have to take care of yourself first. Second, that extra time now that I have to take care of myself also translates into working more efficiently and having more time to connect with my students and colleagues. Like sometimes I'll just sit in my office with the door open and my only focus is like writing comments on works, emailing, waving down students who walk by and having chats with them. And I feel that I'm building those relationships in those moments. So now that you know the ethos as to why I present my professional development the way I do, because I mean, how many people would think that on a talk with human-centered teaching in the title, I'm just going to talk about technical things, but I am, because the technical side is the stuff that delays us and keeps us so bogged down in busy work that we cannot move forward on these student connections. So these are the things, these are the three things I mostly want to talk about. Accessible Canvas, content creation, because that can be tricky to do, online with the constant changing, what's it called? Not resources, constantly changing guidelines into what's accessible. Materials creation assistance. I really wanted to talk more in depth about this, but frankly, there's not going to be time. So I'm keeping it to just creating test banks, which are difficult to create without help. And then a brief talk at the end on modeling responsible AI usage. So let's start with just accessible layouts. And this is something I chatted about at the CVC, and I decided not CVC, excuse me, OTC last summer. I decided not to cut it out because it's such a big one. If you don't have like the design tools that create it for you and you have to create it yourself, you could end up with something like this. And this is like what my pages used to look like because I didn't know better. And, I was using like my 2000s HTML skills that I learned on MySpace to make this page. So that's why it looks so bad and it was not accessible. Here was a calendar, and the worst part is you can get your accessibility score, and it was here. At the end of the talk, I'm going to give you a link to give me your email address. Yeah, I love the laughter because yeah, that's really bad accessibility. So that you can share your email address, because then I can add you to a shared folder on OneDrive so you can look at all these resources, including these bad layouts to fix, and use them as practice. So the fix is to go and edit, and then click on those brackets at the bottom to get in the HTML editor mode, copy and paste all that. I used to spend hours going into here and modifying code. And frankly, that wasted so much of my time because like I couldn't sit in my office with the door open and chat with students going like, this Canvas page isn't working. I have to publish it in an hour and it isn't fixed. So now I can actually just like not stress about it and chat. Paste it into ChatGPT. I need help fixing this inaccessible Canvas layout. Help me out. Here's my accessibility score, and I copy and paste it right after. And then it actually went through and it like explained to me the problems and explained to me in like an easy language that I could fix, but I wasn't going to fix it. It was going to make it fix it, but I love that it told me that in a different language, and here's all the different things it told me that I was doing wrong. It suggested things I could do, and then it offered to rewrite it, which honestly is what I wanted it in the first place. So I mean, I'm cool. I'm grateful that it gave me all the layout of what I did wrong, but I mostly wanted the fixed code. So here are all the suggestions it made. And here it is. It gave me a fully rewritten accessibility optimized version of my layout. I wasn't about to spend all that extra time troubleshooting like I used to. And here is my result, 100% accessibility after copying and pasting that code. And the page looks better, the calendar looks better, the layout looks better. I love that someone said MySpace taught us so much. Yeah, MySpace taught us so much about HTML, and we're still using it. But frankly, I've grown. I don't use images in my, for my headers anymore. If you do, that's fine. I try to use things that are easier to modify and change because I'd have to recreate the image course to course if I still used images. Okay, so here's what it started like and where it ended. Now, code mistakes. This is one of my more modern layouts that I use. And like I said, I don't use images. All of this is text-based. And I created this in, BB edit and modified code. And it took me hours of like reading and learning about HTML and CSS, which I had a bit of an advantage because as an undergrad, I worked for Lawrence Berkeley National Labs as assistant to their webmaster. So I already had the experience. So I can't even imagine going in without experience and having had to create all this. So I like to use a lot of different tabs to keep the content organized. I like to hide text on definitions that I want students to try to remember them themselves and then check their work. I hope that they do that. I can't force them to do that, but I explain to them that's how they need to navigate the pages, right? So say I want to manually modify this page, which I could do. So I typed in here where my cursor is. You have to make sure wherever you're typing is in a P tag, an HTML P tag. And this is important. Look at the bottom of the screen. It'll tell you where you are. If you're not ending on a P tag, you're going to ruin your layout. So if you're scared of HTML and you don't want to ruin these layouts, make sure you're in a P tag. See right here, I moved my cursor, I'm not in a P tag, and this can create errors. And I purposely created errors in this code, and I'm sharing the incorrect error-riddled code for you guys if you want to on your own practice using AI to fix it, practice prompting AI to fix it for you, practice asking AI to change the layout on the color shoe. Okay? And so this is what it looked like after I made the errors. So I did a video because you can see now I clicked through the tabs. Oh, sorry, this is pre-error. And it looks fine, right? And hold on, I know I put a video into the broken one. So hold on, let's get to that broken video. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Okay, and is this the broken one? I hope this is the broken one. Hold on, how do I move forward? You know what? I might have to show you the broken one later, but in the broken one, when I clicked the tags, the other tabs, none of them were visible. The content was just gone. So the same thing, I went here, I went to edit, copy and pasted, and this was my prompt. And you have to be really careful. That's why I bolded this. So this is what I told ChatGPT. While modifying in the WYSIWYG editor, I accidentally deleted some structural div tags. Now the first one is visible, but the rest are blank. But the key is I told it change nothing else about this lesson. Change no content. Don't try to modify the structure to look differently because I shared the conversation I had with the AI, and on follow-ups, it did try to change the content, even though I told it not to. So I had to go back and say, don't change the content. Because the idea is I don't want to copy and paste little fragments of code because then I may as well be troubleshooting the code myself. I'm leaving it open to human error, and I'm going to make more mistakes that are going to cost me that time. So I can't just sit in my office when I'm on campus with the door open waiting to have chats. And honestly, that's more fun. I love having more chats with students instead of fixing code. So it thought about it and it figured out what the mistakes were, where the missing tags were, and it made a new one for me. I tried to share the chat on this QR code, and I've never shared a ChatGPT, chat. I don't know if it worked. So you can try it. If it works, great. If not, you can look at the shared file afterwards. So I shared the whole chat as a PDF. It was like 37 pages, so I didn't want to put it into into this presentation. And as you can see on the screenshot, okay, perfect. This is the broken code. So here you can see the broken code. I click on those tabs and there's nothing there. The content that was there looks like it's missing. So I go here and in ChatGPT, I copy the corrected code and I just copy and paste it so I don't have to do anything. And this was just a few minutes of my time instead of maybe an afternoon of my time. And that makes a huge difference in streamlining a task that I have to do. And look, now when I click around, it's all there. My little hidden details boxes work. So the self-checks that I asked student to use, they work, having it remove tables for page layout is excellent. So using div tags as the structure for your courses instead of tables is accessible. And if you don't know what those are and how to use them, ask the AI, here's a table layout for my page. It's not accessible. Can you change it to div tags to make it look the same, but is accessible, and it will fix that for you, which I love. It saves so much time. Okay. And let's talk about test banks, right? Materials creations. Now we're on the second part. Maybe I should slow down. We're only at like 10:20. So materials creation, so online test banks, right? So these allow for the randomized selection of questions. We all know this in Canvas assessments. And in online courses, this is a great way to, prevent that question harvesting that students will harvest all these questions and one person memorize and they'll put them in these test banks. I remember when I was an undergraduate being told through my scholarship group, they're like, hey, we're creating test banks, so give us your exam questions, Everyone does it. And this helps prevent it because there's a little, they could still do it, but there's so much randomization that they're still going to have to, at least in my courses, since I teach math, they're still going to have to learn how to do it. So what if they have similar problems to study from? I'm sorry that the QR code doesn't work. So afterwards, I'll have to get your contact information and I can share it. I'm sorry, I just saw that in the chat. I have to figure out how to share chats, because it has an option to share. I just haven't figured out how to do that. Anyway, so even if my students end up with 5 versions of a question, guess what? Their version is going to be different. So they still have to learn how to solve the question. And so there's that.
There is one question I think applies to what you're going to talk about, but obviously the previous content. What are some of the strategies for making sure the content is mobile accessible?
That's a good question. Let me go back here. So making sure it's mobile accessible. My biggest strategy is honestly checking it on mobile. One thing, and actually let me share. Let's see, can we see the code here? Because, okay. So we can't quite. So I want to point out here, see how there's this red bar that says Module 5, Lesson 4, guided lecture, and the yellow bar right under it. Those are not images. Those are literally, the yellow one is a paragraph tag where it says the color, the height, and it changes its width to 100%. So basically, if your students shrink it down, it'll still view well on mobile. So a big strategy I would say is these sort of headers, don't use images because images are not going to resize well. They're going to take longer to load, especially I see my students do it all the time. They're on their cell phones, checking the class on their cell phones. I do it too. Frankly, I do a lot of my work on a cell phone these days. So in order to make it more accessible on mobile, avoid using the images. And I'll go back actually, especially since I maybe went through this a little fast, to how I used to do layouts. So bear with me. I go back. So see right here where it says calculus and analytic geometry 1, that was a graphic that I created. So that means if a student looked at it on mobile, it was probably going to still be the same size. I could have it shrink down or grow, but that's still going to slow them down when they're trying to look at the page on the go, wherever they're going to, wherever they're traveling. If they're like on a weekend trip and want to quickly do their homework, that's going to slow them down. So I don't do that anymore. Make everything like in this lesson, all of this are just located in headers, like header 2, header 3, header 4 tags. They're located in paragraph tags. That's it. There's no images to create these. It's all just text-based. And the only thing I modify is I have a background color that I chose for each of them, and I chose it to fit my institution. And fun fact, my old institution of Los Medanos and my current institution of Nuevo Carlos have the same colors, which is so nice because I didn't have to go back and change all the colors on the pages. It worked out so well, that transition, at least color-wise. So I could keep that red and yellow because there's similar enough colors to both institutions. So that would be my biggest advice. Don't use images. As you can see right now, this is on my screen. It's a wide page. And notice this dotted line here on the self-check, even that grows. If a student looks at it on a wide browser, it'll be super wide. If they look at it on the phone, it's going to shrink down to fit their phone, and it's still going to look like the box, and it's not going to be cut off. So make sure all of this is done in paragraph tags, in header tags, or in div div tags. And if you don't know how to write them, honestly, take a screenshot of this or layouts you like, paste it into ChatGPT and say, help me write HTML code for this. You have to explain to it that you cannot use the header in a Canvas page, and it will know eventually. Tell it to put all CSS, that's the cascading style sheet, tell them to put it all directly in the HTML code, and it will do it for you, which is really nice. No previous experience necessary. And let's see how much of this is visible. See right here, you can see a lot of the code. You can see right here under fragment 0, it says H3. That's the header tag. And this is the instructions for the guided lecture. All my pages start off with these instructions that show students how they should navigate the course. And it's in, I want to show you at the top, right there. Instructions for the guided lecture is text-based, and it'll shrink when the students look at it on their phone. It'll get larger when students look at it on a screen, and it's all based on text right here. So here you can see that how it's formatted, it's aligned, the padding, the color I use, and I can change the text, and I don't have to modify it in an image program, which I used to have to do when I used pictures for my headers. So I had to modify them and think of different sizes, and that honestly takes way too much time. Just keep it text-based. It's so much easier that way. So I hope that answers your question. If you have follow-up questions, let me know. I'm sure someone will inform me if I can't see it on the chat. Excuse me. Okay. Actually, I am going to quickly look at the chat. It definitely needs to be specific. Oh, testing. Thank you. You know what? I should talk about that. Ashley Foster mentioned testing. And you know what? I didn't mention it, but I do. I have multiple devices I test on. I have a PC I look at these on. Not great about always looking at it on the PC, but I will always check it out. And I don't know. I love Apple. I buy way too many Apple devices. So I have multiple like iPads and phones, and I'll look at them on different devices. And then sometimes when my students are in class, I would literally ask them, hey, what does this Canvas page look like on your phone? Especially if they have a device that I don't have, because then I can get an idea. And I will honestly tell them, like, I don't know what you see. And sometimes I think you see something, but then you show me what you see. And it's like, wow, that was not my intent. So definitely test it out on lots of different devices. For sure. Thank you for reminding me of that. Ashley, thank you for reminding me of that. So now let's talk about test bank use in online courses. I was already sharing kind of why I use them, my motivation for using them. Ideally, I want to protect academic integrity in the long run. And here I have a screenshot of test banks for my Math 220 course, which is Calc 2. on the Common Course Numbering System. Some institutions I know haven't aligned that yet, but this is for the second semester of a calculus course. And these are different questions. And some of them I haven't built up enough, have one question, especially essay questions, because I don't really need more than one to get a good perspective. But I try to have a few questions. Oh, this one's great. So a polynomial times a trig function in techniques of integration. I have 6 questions here. I have, volumes of revolution concepts. The shells one needs some work. Arc length also needs some work. But anyways, you can see how there's multiple ones. So here's one I did recently for optimization, right? So on my courses, I have these printed notes. I like to give my students printed out guided notes template that then they follow along with. So I love the use of guided notes in math classes because then students don't have to worry about it. They can just follow along with what I'm teaching without worrying about what to write down. This kind of fits in with all the free accessible materials that I try to create. So this is one of the practice problems I give them, and I quiz based on those practice problems. My in-person students, it's easy. I can give them this problem and we're good. I only need one version of it, right? But now for my online students, I don't. So here's what I told ChatGPT. I wanted multiple versions of it. So I pasted my question and I said, I want to create multiple versions of the above question for an online test bank used in a course I teach. I explained that I use the classic quizzes because it has different features and limitations from the new quizzes. I don't know which one you prefer. And I said, I'm limited by that, but however, I want to make them multiple parts. I often use the fill in multiple blanks to create questions with parts A, B, C, D, E. Otherwise, it's really tricky to get them to do a math equation and an answer and an essay all in one question in Canvas. You have to use multiple questions, which I find difficult for randomization because then your questions have to match up. And if I have one test bank for part A and one test bank for part B, and I randomize it, it might pull questions for part A and part B that don't match. So I'd rather have one long question with all the question parts personally. And then I told it what I'm looking for. I want students to set up an objective, a constraint, rewrite the constraint, provide the objective function with the constraint substituted back in, find the derivative, critical values, et cetera, et cetera. Also identify if that critical value is a max. So that's not a number, that's typing, right? Everyone loves cats. Everyone wants to create a catio. I know, I love cats. I love my cat. So that's what inspired that question clearly. And that picture was not of my cat. Anyways, where I was going. So some of these are a number, right? So like finding the critical value, that's going to be entering in a number, but to identify it's a max, they have to type in words. And so using fill in multiple blanks type questions on Canvas really helps me get multiple parts done. But then that takes time. So then creating the multiple questions can frankly be daunting sometimes, especially maybe not in this case. This one, it works out pretty well, no matter what fencing you put in. But sometimes I want students to explore, say, rational functions. And I need questions that have asymptotes at whole number values that factor easily. All these sort of things that I don't want my students to get lost. If they're learning how to use synthetic division to find slant asymptotes of a rational function, the last thing I want is for them to get a polynomial that doesn't factor and then or maybe factors badly or has like a remainder that's weird, anything that will throw them off the concept. So basically keep the question structure, the question itself simple to the point where I really can tease out, doesn't matter if they know how to factor, do they know how to find that slant asymptote? And creating those multiple randomized questions with those constraints in mind can be really difficult. And I've made mistakes, so many mistakes in the past doing that. So here is one that it gave me. So it kind of gave me the fill in the blank version, and it gave me ideas for how to set up my version online. It suggested, with the 50 fencing, I didn't like that so many of the answers were 50. So I modified it just a little bit. And this is still a little tedious if I want multiple questions because I'd have to type it in, which is of course fine. If you're happy with like typing in one question, you can copy it to another question bank, edit it and copy it back. And you can make, as many copies as you have time to modify manually, right? And of course you have to look for errors, human and AI errors. We all make mistakes. So make sure if it says that like the max area is 312.5, make sure you've worked out the problem manually and you can actually say, sorry, let me go back. So if you're getting these questions, make sure you work out the questions manually and can actually verify that these values are correct because they might not be correct. And, AI makes mistakes, right? So here's what I created. So here's the question I typed in. And when you use question types that are fill in multiple blanks, it's super easy. You put bracket, you name the question, close the bracket. So in question A, I just have one bracket. Question B, I have one bracket. Question C, where they're writing the area function in terms of X, they're filling in a couple coefficients. Question E, they're finding the important critical value, not the one that's 0. On second glance, I should probably tell them find the only realistically useful critical value, because there's another critical value that's not useful in this scenario. So I'm glad I'm looking at this with you guys, because it helped me see something I can fix for part E. And then for part F, they have to type in if it's a min or max. And I tell them type in only min or max. Inevitably, you're gonna have students that type in maximum, minimum, full word, all caps. So when you fill in multiple blanks, you can specify the answers. So for A, I specified 50. For F, I can go through and I can specify, it's a maximum. I can specify MAX. I can specify capital MAX. I can specify capital M maximum. I can, specify all sorts of different ways. And I do tell my students that if they get marked down on something that was correct, to share a screenshot with me. I can go in and verify it and just see, oh, they typed in a correct answer in a way I didn't anticipate, and it's a quick fix. So of course, this is all manual, but the thing is, ChatGPT can create test banks for you. And I learned this because I do use TestGen, and I realize there's two main components besides images. I don't bother using it to create images because it's still not quite reliable on creating diagrams and multiple versions of diagrams. So I just use GeoGebra for that, or GeoGebra, I don't know how people pronounce it. I use that to create my math diagrams. So what I do instead is I took a template of 2 XML files from a TestGen test bank. One is called IMS Manifest and one is called questions.xml. And I am providing those as templates so you guys can use them yourself. Oh, and that's a typo. That should say XML, not HML. I was me just hitting the wrong key on my keyboard when I typed this up. And then you can compress them. So let me talk about that. So here's what I asked it to do. Hold on. You can ask ChatGPT what I do. I ask it for one version of a question. Then I can prompt it and say, now give me 10 similar versions of this question, and it'll give you all the versions. Then I can, and this is what I do, I will literally drag the questions.xml file and say, this XML file works in Canvas in a test bank. Can you convert all the multiple questions into, or put them into this file in a way that is readable in my test bank, so that when I import it back into Canvas, I have suddenly a quiz created. And this will take me all of maybe 30, 45 minutes. Longer end if I have to prompt it more and fix some errors, but usually it's on the shorter end. Now, once you import it back into Canvas, you can actually before importing in Canvas, the file it gives you, you can always edit it directly. And so use a text editor. Microsoft Word's not a text editor. You're going to want something like BB Edit on a Mac. I think it's just notes basically on a PC. I've been using Macs mainly since like 2000, so I'm not sure what text editors are out there on PCs, but I know they're out there because I spent a couple years working on a PC and I always figured it out, but I never remembered the names on it. On a Mac, it's BB Edit and it's free. It tells you have to buy it for more features, but if you're not using it for more than a text editor, it's fine. And you can always replace the title in line 3 of the code. It's right there. Right now it's called Catio optimization. If I put it into, import it into Canvas, my test bank will be called Catio optimization, which is cool, but it does not fit along with my organization structure, and I'll go back and show that. And this makes my life easier. It gives me more time to, again, be a human with my students to stay organized. So I like to do course number, module number, part number. So that's basically the lesson number, and then a brief description of the concept. That's my naming system for all my test banks. Because then it's really easy if I want to reuse one from one course to another or modify. I think, what course was it? It was Math 110 Statistics. I can go in, what module was it? Module 5. I look for any that's at AM5. Which lesson? It was 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can find it. And there are my test banks with brief descriptions. So definitely, I personally, if I were you, would go in and modify the title. And if you don't want to do that, you can tell it, I want the test bank to be this title, and I'm sure it'll do that for you. I don't know why I didn't think of doing that before this point, probably because I find it just so easy to open it up in BB Edit and just change the title myself, Once you've made any little changes that you would like to your XML file, you create a folder, name it whatever you want. You can call it test bank folder. You can name it the exact same name as your test bank, which is what I tend to do. You want to put your questions.xml file in there provided by AI. You want to put in your IMS manifest XML into that same file. You can use the same one repeatedly, and then you can compress that folder into a zip file. I've never had to use third-party software for zips. Usually you just have to right-click on any system, and you should have an option to compress, and it'll create the zip file for you. You want to upload that to Canvas. And to upload it to Canvas, it's super easy. You go into your settings, import course content. We've all done it. And one of the options is a QTI zip file. So that's the one you're looking for, a QTI zip file. And then, of course, before you publish your quiz, this is super key. Look at what the questions look like in Canvas. There's a couple things to go wrong. There could be content mistakes. AI makes mistakes. I find the content mistakes easier to see. So this is what a sample one that I am providing for anyone who wants the sample test bank. So definite integral concept 1. This is one that I haven't modified or edited yet. I just imported it today to have it for this talk. And this is what the output it gave me, right? But I still need to go in. I need to read the questions, make sure they make sense. Another thing it can get wrong is the math type. So anyone who teaches math, physics, or anything that has that sort of special math type, it doesn't always format it correctly, but it leaves you the LaTeX code, LATEX, the LaTeX code in there for you. So you can really just copy it, open up the math editor, paste it, and you've got it for you right there, and you can fix that. So those are the 2 things I fix. Hold on. Oh, and let me go back here because that's really not enough on the quiz stuff. So anyways, you can definitely fix those kind of mistakes. You can even add feedback at that point if you would like to add feedback is something I do. I usually try to stick to not feedback per answer, unless it's really specific computation answers, like I'm having my students compute integrals. I know which mistakes I've asked to be created, and I can say, you made this mistake, that mistake. But usually it's just for a correct answer that's correct. For an incorrect answer, I like to type in, that's not correct. Please see module number this, lesson number that, in Canvas, and then link it to that module. And that's not something I came up with. I like to do my own little personal learning on Coursera. And on Coursera, when I've done their online courses, I love that on the quizzes, when I get something wrong, it literally has a link to where I can find the correct content or that similar information in the course. So on my feedback, I love, and I think this makes it a lot easier for students. It reduces their cognitive load to have to, go back and review their notes. Include a link to where they can find the information in your Canvas course. Okay, and now let's go in and chat about one last thing, modeling AI use in course policies. And now this is probably one of the briefest parts of my presentation. My technical-minded brain couldn't think of a good way to explain this in PowerPoint slides, so I thought I would just share my course's policy on artificial intelligence, as well as what I tell my students. So if you notice, first of all, I don't call it academic honesty or anything on my course. The page is literally called academic standards, and I go into things like time commitment, what it means to have a 4-unit course, how many hours that means in the classroom, how many hours that means outside the classroom. And I give them some general advice on how to actually meet those hours and study habits, right? Under the second tab, academic integrity, I go into the basics like don't look over at your neighbor's sheet and copy off of them. Come on. Like we all know not to do that, right? I go into those sort of things. And then I mentioned to them that if they cannot solve a problem, a math problem, at least with just a paper, pencil, and maybe a basic scientific calculator, they haven't learned the concept. And I remind them on this page and online, I remind them regularly that on quizzes and exams, when they are in my classroom, especially in the classroom, online it's a little trickier, but when they are in my classroom, they're not going to have many tools at their disposal, so they should practice taking the tests as if they're in the test setting, which means paper, pencil, basic calculator, nothing else. And this is where I get into the AI. I tell them in my syllabus that they can use it. And frankly, I don't even push them to disclose it. I don't want anyone to secretly use it because they think they're going to get in trouble. So I'm just giving them a blanket. Use it if you want to. But here's the thing. Use it so it does not replace your learning. And that is the key that you have to constantly share every day. Sometimes I'll be walking around in group work and my students, Let me give an example with rational functions. I recently had them do an activity where I gave them rational functions in space where they had to factor them, or they had to, cancel out, factors of it, figure out if they had horizontal asymptotes, vertical asymptotes, slant asymptotes. And then they had little cutouts of graphs that they had to cut out and glue and match up, right? I had step-by-step instructions in my notes on how to do this. But my students in class, some of them still had ChatGPT open and they're reading there on their computer, like this looking so confused. And I said, okay, that's impacting your learning. Close that, open up the notes, look right here. And I'd point to where it was in my notes where they could figure this out. They'd be like, oh, and suddenly it would click and they'd go back to being able to do the assignment. So that's a big one. You have to regularly and repeatedly, and I mean, and this is the frustrating part, repeatedly remind them that if it's interfering with their learning, you're doing it wrong. It shouldn't interfere with your learning. So it can help you learn, but you still need to put in the work. You still need to look at your notes. And I will often tell them to treat it like a private tutor. If you're at home and you're stuck on a problem, you don't know how to do it, ask it for help. If you still don't understand the solution, say, please give me 3 similar problems to solve. And then try to work this out. Ask it for solutions. And then use other tools to check your work, especially in my math classes. I show them how to use online graphing calculators like GeoGebra mostly. Desmo's a bit, but frankly, I find GeoGebra so much easier for checking work that I'll say like, go graph that rational function. See if you matched up the graph of the rational function correctly. See if you identified the removable discontinuities correctly. Like I tell them to do that online and even ask chat to do it with the warning that it will make mistakes. And then here are some examples of how. Can I make this image bigger? Oh, I don't think I can. So here are some examples of how I tell them to use ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT or your favorite AI to explain course theorems to you. Sample question, what does the central limit theorem actually mean? They can get a lot of help that way. Ask it to explain a formula in class. Why does the formula for standard deviation sometimes have an n in the denominator? Why does sometimes have n minus 1 in the denominator? And you can also ask it for sample questions, Can you provide me with several examples of calculating a weighted average? And frankly, I just realized when I wrote this, I was teaching statistics. They're all statistics related. I should think of a way to rewrite this for my calculus courses too. Look at this. I'm learning here with you guys, But yeah, yeah, we do love stats, Stacy, for sure. Explicit conversations with sorry, I can go back. I'm muddling my words together. Explicit and regular conversations about their AI usage is important. But not only that, if my students come to my office and I have ChatGPT up, I don't hide it. I've had students ask me, what are you doing with that? And I'll turn my screen and show them, look, take recently in my pre-calculus course, I had my students discover what a radian was. And I've done this activity twice already before, and I was doing it for the 3rd time. And I'm like, when I wrote it, AI didn't exist. So I wonder what's wrong with it. So I literally fed my activity into ChatGPT, and it gave me advice on how to make it more clear, how to rewrite the questions, and how to encourage more student-to-student collaboration. And I'll be honest, it went better than ever. In this activity, I give students circles of different sizes on a page. I give them yarn, scissors, and glue, and they cut out little strings of length of the radius and discover that even though their circle might have a 3-inch radius and their neighbors might have a 4-inch radius, 1 radian is still about 57 degrees. They figure out this really special angle that occurs when the radius matches the arc, creating the angle. And I really feel that it went better than it ever did because I had AI look at it and troubleshoot it for me. And I will always tell my students and joke, sorry if I have typos, I don't get an editor. Oh, and the AI version did have a typo. It should have said an ordered pair of R0 because the radius was R and it was unknown, but it typed in 10 if it was a unit circle. So before I had already printed it, before I copied it, I literally just did whiteout, fixed every one with an R, done. Easy fix, right? So there's still maybe some errors, but it helps catch so many more errors that I wouldn't have caught in the past. And so I love it because now it's like, I don't have to go into class, give an activity, only to find out it's not working because I made a typo that blew the whole thing up. And I've had that happen before, and that sucks because now I'm dedicating class time to like managing this, troubleshooting this, and getting students who were stuck on the material already, who are now still going, oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't make sense, even the teacher doesn't know it, and that's just going to discourage them and frustrate them more. So now I'm more confident in the materials I bring to class, because I basically pass everything into ChatGPT and ask it, what mistakes have I made? What typos have I made? What potential pitfalls am I missing? What are some potential student questions I haven't anticipated in? And so when my students see me using ChatGPT, I share that with them. I say, remember, I don't get an editor. This helps me make sure I have better teaching materials to bring into class to you, so you and I can focus on interacting and just the basic course content without focusing on the fact my teacher made a mistake and now the whole class is confused. And I gotta be honest, I hope I'm not the only one that's been there. I don't think I've been the only one that's been there, but I'm just gonna admit it. I've been there. If you've been there and too shy to admit it, don't be too shy to admit it. I hope we've all been there, made a mistake and just like, oh, what do I do? How do I recover from this? And I feel a lot more confident now in my teaching, because if I am not sure how to present something, I feel like I have an advocate. I have a teaching assistant who has my back, who will help me fix all this, you know? And of course, it doesn't replace my content knowledge, because it'll sometimes give me stuff that's just wrong, like flat out wrong, things that don't exist. And I'm like, oh, that's wrong. No, I can't do that. And then finally, like I said, this was not something I did a lot of slides on because it just didn't. I love that people are admitting it. Thank you. All the time it happens. Thank you for admitting that. Not the only human in the Zoom room. So again, my technical brain works a lot better with showing technical concepts on the screen. And with like non-technical concepts, I'm a lot better about chatting about them. And so one thing I regularly like to do every semester, and it's changed since AI has grown. When it first came out, it was easier. And I know I need to wrap it up, sorry. When it first came out, it was a lot easier to do. I had my students, my Calc 2 students, second semester of calculus, I gave them a description of an area in the Cartesian plane, said, you know, a parabola with this equation, you're going to find the volume of the solid formed when you have cross sections perpendicular to the x-axis that form squares on this parabola, right? And I told them, copy and paste this prompt into ChatGPT, write out the answer, and then using the materials we've learned in class, critique it. Explain to me, either defend the answer as fully correct, troubleshoot where it made its mistakes, or say it's totally wrong and this is the way to do it. And that was the entirety of the assignment. Give it this prompt for a question. Have it answer the prompt. Then go through your notes, your textbook, chat with your classmates and see, was this incorrect? Was this not correct? It's getting a little trickier to do because it's honestly getting a lot better with math concepts. So I feel like this one is one I'm like trying to constantly outrun, find, well, what mistakes can I get it to make now? Or how can I word a math question so that maybe it'll make a mistake that my students can troubleshoot? And some advice. Yeah, some advice for someone new to editing Canvas pages to get them started. My biggest advice would be like what I learned to do when I was first working at LBNL with the webmaster there. I looked at her code constantly. I learned from her code. So, and actually I keep talking about resources. Let me go to that last slide while I'm talking. There it is. So conference handout access, that QR code I know works. It will get you to a Microsoft form where I just want your name and email address. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the corresponding Excel it creates for me, copy all those email addresses and add them to my shared folder with all the materials. I still see your question, Stacey, and I'm going to finish answering it. But Camille, to your question, I teach both in person and online. And so these materials that I create, I use it for both settings, for both cases. I mean, I love teaching online. I love teaching in person. And for different reasons, I can't give up either. I will never, ever fully be a fully online educator or a fully in-person educator. I think I love and appreciate both. So now getting back to editing, someone new editing Canvas pages, look at other people's work and learn from their code. So on it, I included code that has mistakes. I'm going to throw in a basic template of a Canvas page. Now that I think about it, I should. So for anyone that hasn't done it, and you can just go in there, copy it, paste it into a blank Canvas page. And the best way to learn is mess around with it. Type new things in there, try to put pictures in there, try to embed videos, try to embed math equations, try to make a mistake and break it and have AI fix it for you. Those are all the sort of things you should be doing. And whereas before I had to go to like the W3C schools and Google and like fix all these mistakes by reading about it, now I honestly stick mostly to asking AI, here's this code snippet, it's broken, can you fix it for me? Oh my God, no one can access my codes. Oh man, I'm so sorry. Maybe sorry, Anwar or someone who's running this, can you guys collect email addresses from people? Because I can share access to this file, but I need email addresses.
So
Uh,
the best way is
yeah.
when we share out the slides on the
Yeah.
website, let's just make sure that the links work at that time.
Okay.
And then that
Okay.
way, when people access the slides, because they will be posted on the CVC at One
Okay.
Webinar website page.
Can I
Um,
just send you all the materials, the toolkit, all of that, and have it posted there instead of people trying to access it through my OneDrive?
for sure. Whatever you
Perfect.
send, we can post on the webpage.
Perfect. Okay, I guess that's it. Let me stop my share. Perfect. So that'll make it easier then to give everyone the materials. Because clearly, as far as some technical aspects, I haven't learned how to do it. I actually spent some time chatting with AI this morning, going, I'm trying to share it this way, it's not working. I'm trying to share it that way, it's not working. Because I used an iPad that I specifically don't keep any of my accounts logged into because it acts like my iPad account to try to open the links, and I was struggling to open them. So I could say this didn't work and try again. So anyways, I'd rather just send you guys the material. And that's it. And thank you for the glasses. I buy them on the internet because they're super cheap on the internet. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you will take my ethos of like, put your students and that time you want to spend, put that first in essence, or maybe second to after taking care of yourself. Take care of yourself, then you can take care of your students. And the only way you can do that is by streamlining your workload so you're not doing all these other extra things. So I'm sorry if you thought this was going to be more of a kumbaya, let's talk about what human-centered teaching is. It really isn't. It was like why I do it, and this is the technical side of it. So anyways, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, guys.
Thank you so much, Nadia. We have a few more minutes for questions if anyone has, but before you can type them into the Q&A or in the chat. I just want to thank everyone for attending the webinar. Before you go, please check the chat for the survey and take a moment to complete it. You'll receive a copy of your responses, which can serve as verification for your attendance. And if you have any questions or need any support, feel free to email support@cvc.edu. We encourage you to explore our past webinars. This is the last webinar for the fall series, but please keep an eye out for the spring series webinars. And you can also, of course, view all our past webinars on the website. Lastly, like we mentioned, this webinar and its recordings and associated slides will be available on the CVC website. Please allow a few days for captioning before they're posted. So with that, thank you all so much for being here. I'll look to
Sorry,
we do,
Anwar,
yes.
there's someone who is asking for that link for the survey again. Do you mind throwing that in the chat
Yes, I'll
really
drop it in
quickly
right
one
now.
more time? Thank
Yes.
you.
And I see there's one question. I would like to share 2 apps I create to facilitate all this process. All right, thank you so much for sharing, Wanda. I really appreciate it. And I think, let's see. There are no other questions. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Nydia. And then
Thanks for
I'll wait
having
for
me.
you to email
Oh, I did the heart
the
wrong. Sorry.
oh, I don't know, maybe it's upside down. I'll wait for you to email the the information you want me to post on the website.
Cool. All right, I will do that for
All
sure.
right, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
All
And
right.
thank you so much for our ASL interpreters. Thank you so much for everything
Yes.
you do.
Thanks, guys.
We really appreciate you guys. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day.